In today's tutorial, we'll make the men's interchangeable scarf in the steep diagonal by Yarnspirations.com. Welcome back to another Yarnspirations tutorial. I'm your host, Kristen Mangus of GoodKnit Kisses. Let's get started. For today's tutorial, you'll need a super bulky number 6 yarn. We're using Bernat Softee Chunky in color Emerald. Today we're working on the men's interchangeable scarves, and there are 6 scarves in this pattern. There are 2 different pages. We're actually going to work on version 1 today, which is the steep diagonal. It's called out in a Karen Simply Soft in the solids and heathers and paints, but today we're going to be working with Softee Chunky. You're going to want a number 11 US 11 needle or 8mm, and you'll need 2 balls of the Softee Chunky. I'm working on it in Emerald today. We're going to refer to these instructions here off to the side, so you want to print out your instructions for the website, and you'll find the link down below. And we're going to make this in a chunkier scarf. Let's get started on the instructions. To start off with this pattern, we're going to cast on 12 stitches in the Softee Chunky yarn with the US 11 needle or 8mm. You can pull out about 18 inches for a long tail cast on and start it from here. If you prefer a different method, you can try a different cast on that way. I also teach the knit cast on my channel for GoodKnit Kisses if you need that version. I'm going to put the tail towards you and the working yarn at the back. We're going to hold it and split that yarn here, pull back and scoop up from the thumb area, go down where that finger is, and then down through that thumb area again. Pull it off with your thumb and pull that yarn there, that working tail there, and you have got that cast on. So we've got 2 stitches cast on. Let's go again. Split that yarn, go up through the thumb, down through where the finger is, and down through the thumb again. When I pull my thumb off, I just pull that extra tail right there. We're going to make sure that it's loose enough to where it can move and it's got room to put our stitches through, but not too loose to where it's falling off. So continue that on and pause your video and meet me back up, and I'll do it one more time if you need it a little bit slower. So we're going to pull back, go up through the thumb area, down through the finger, and then down through the thumb again. Pull it off with your thumb and pull that working tail. All right, pause your video and come back. If you need a slower tutorial, check out GoodKnit Kisses for those playlists of slower tutorials on making that cast on. Meet you back in a moment with 12 stitches. Now that we've cast it on, we're going to turn our needle. And before I start, I like to get a stitch marker and mark the right side, which will be row 1 in our pattern. And I'm just going to slip that in through that little purl bump here. And we're going to show you the first couple of stitches slower, the knit stitch and the purl stitch, so that you've got it, and then the rest of it will speed up a little bit. So if you need a slower tutorial, be sure and check out GoodKnit Kisses YouTube page, and I've got some slower versions of that for you. This stitch pattern is a multiple of 6, so everything is going to be in 3s or 6s. So we've got 3 purls on the first row and 3 knits followed by the same. So we're going to do the first stitch was a purl. We're going to go into the front leg of the stitch from the right side and yarn over, and then we're going to purl it by pushing that new yarn through the back of this loop here, and then let it just fall off that needle. Okay, let's try that again. So we're just putting our needle in through the front of that stitch there from the right side and through the front leg of the stitch of the needle here. Yarn over by wrapping around, and then we're just going to push that new stitch on through and pull it off of the old needle. Go through one more time, and now we have made our 3 purl stitches here. You can see the little purl bump. Now we're going to knit. We're going to put the working yarn to the back now. If you don't do that, you'll create an extra stitch. So go through this needle here, in between stitch 1 and 2, go through the front leg of the stitch there, wrap around, and pull it through. And you can just slide off easily that old stitch. Let's do that again. Put it in, wrap around, pull that new stitch through, let the old one fall off. This is the third one. Okay, so now we have our purl 3, knit 3, and we're going to do that again. Go to the front and complete that. When we are done with this row, we'll move on to row 2. And our pattern will go a little bit faster. This is a 12 row repeat. Okay. So with the 12 stitches, your work is going to grow a little bit. It'll get to the end on my double pointed needles. If you are working with a circular needle, you can just work back and forth in a flat panel. And of course, if you got longer needles, you won't have to worry about that. Let's turn around and we'll work on row 2, which is the exact same thing. So we're going to purl 1, purl 2, purl 3, knit 1, 2, 3, purl 2, 3, knit, okay, so we got the 2 rows on there. We'll turn it back, and now we're on the right side again because we see that. So now we know that we are on an odd row. That's another way of keeping track. So when you see this, you're on the odd row. We're looking at row 3, which is knit 1, purl 3, put our yarn to the front again, purl 1, 2, 3, and then it says knit 2, so go to the back, knit 1, 2, and then you repeat. But if you are doing a much wider version, say a blanket or something, you'll know that everything is in the 6s and 3s. So we've got a group of 3 here, so I've only got 1, 2 knit stitches. I'm going to just continue that knit stitch one more time, and then I know that it's a purl next. So on these, on this entire pattern, once you know the first pair or set of stitches that you need to do, if you know it's a purl or a knit or whatever, you follow that number, and then you just continue on in your pattern until you complete the stitches. So if I started with 1 knit stitch, I end with 2 knit stitches here. So that way it completes that, that 3s. So we have a group of 3 purls and 3 knits, and then here's 3 purls, and this is 1, 2, 3 knits, if that makes sense. So the next row, we're going to turn that over and work on row 4. Row 4 is purl 2. So once we get the purl 2 on there, we know we do the next stitch, which is a knit, and we do 3 of that. So we're just going to go to the back and do knit 1, 2, 3, go to the front, and now we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Purl 1, 2, 3, go back, 1, knit 2, knit 3, go to the front, and now we just have the 1 purl left because we purled twice at the beginning. And we can turn that over, and we're on to the next row, which is 5, and we know that because we are on this right side here. We're going to knit 2, 1, 2, and we go into the purl stitch because it's next, and again 3 again, so that's 1, 2, 3, into the back, 1, 2, 3, front, 2, 3, that's the last purl, and then one more stitch is the knit. Okay, and flip that over. We're on row 6 now. If you get stuck, we're about halfway through here. If you put your work down and you're not really sure where you left off, if you'll constantly move your stitch marker up after you finish your 12 row repeat, then you can always count up the rows at how many you did and then look at what the last stitch that you did was. So I can turn this over and go, oh, okay, well, I know I got 1, 2, 3 purls, and then this is a knit. So when I turn it over, I can look at my pattern and see what that pattern ended with. So now I'm going to go to row 6, which is purl 1. And now we get back into our 6 repeat here, multiple here. Knit 1, 2, 3, and now we purl. 1, 2, 3, knit 1, 2, 3, and purl 2. Okay, now row 7 and 8, they're going to be identical. We're going to do the opposite of what we did on rows 1 and 2, and where we knit 3 and purl 3. So knit 3 and purl 3. And last remaining 3 is purl. Turn that over, repeat that again, knit 3. Okay, you can see how the pattern is starting to work up. You see this angle developing here. And we're going to purl 1 and knit 3. This is a repeat of row 6. So purl 1 and then knit 3. Yarn to the front again. Purl 1, 2, 3, to the back, knit 1, 2, oops, 3, and then last 2 is purl. If you want a wider scarf, you could make it 18 stitches. You want to cast on 18 from the beginning. Okay, row 10 is a repeat of row 5. We're going to knit 2, 1, 2, purl 1, 2, 3, knit 1, 2, 3, purl 1, 2, 3, 1 left, and knit, last one. Turn your work to the right side. You really see this pattern developing here. We're going to purl 2, same as a row 4. And knit 3, 1, 2, 3, purl, 3, and knit, 2, 3. Last purl. Row 12 is the last row in this row repeat, and if you miss it at any time in your pattern, you will find that the pattern starts going in a different direction. So you see this nice angle here, it's going to continue in angles this direction. If you don't, it's going to go back up the other way, which could be cool if you intended it that way, but you'll need to plan it. So last row, we're going to knit 1 and then continue on our pattern. So you got it. Purl 3, 2, 3, purl 2, 3, knit 2, 1, 2. Okay, that's the end of that. Now what we can do is we've got our 12 row repeat. You can see how nicely it's working up. It's all going to have these angles on them, and the front is going to go to the left, and the right is going. The back is going to go to the right. You can take out your stitch marker here and move it upwards. So you take out your stitch marker and put it on this stitch here or wherever you'd like. I like to put it on this purl bump here. And then I know that I can count these rows upward and see how many I've done. And I continue using the stitch marker and it shows me where I've ended that repeat. So once you're at the end of that repeat or your desired length, then you'll bind off. We're going to pause your video and keep working. And when you get to where you need to add in some extra yarn, I will meet back up and show you how to add yarn into your project, and then we'll bind off and finish it together. Okay, I've come to a place in my work where I want to add in the yarn. I happen to be on a right side row, and I've worked the first few stitches here. I'm going to put my working yarn to the back and hold it in my left hand, and then I'm going to put in my new tail and hold it at the same place. Okay, so that my new ball is coming from here. And I'm just going to work into this knit stitch here by yarning over with the new yarn and pulling it through. And I'm just going to continue holding it tight with this left hand here. And yarn over and work my next stitches. And just continue in that manner. And then once I've got several stitches in here, I will drop that off. Okay, so now just drop those off. They're in here now, and then when I come back I can weave those in with a wide-eyed tapestry needle, and I'll be ready to finish up my work. So when you've got it to the desired length that you want, you can make it 60 inches, 72, however long that you want to make it. Meet you back at the end and we will bind off together. I'm going to end after I have finished a 12 row repeat, and I'll be back on the front side as if I was going to work the next row 1. All right, I'll meet you back in a moment. Way to go, you are nearly done. We're going to bind this off in pattern. Now the particular pattern here does not actually say to bind off in pattern or cast off in pattern. We're just going to go ahead and do that. You can do a basic bind off, but we're actually going to use the stitch that is matching up with the one that's already there. So I see that this was a purl bump here and a purl bump here, and then these are knit stitches. So I'm going to follow the pattern that is here. So we're going to work this first stitch in whatever it is. So this is a purl, and then the next stitch I'm going to work in a purl, and then I stop. I'm going to lift the back over the front, and that is binding off one stitch or casting off one stitch. It depends on where in the world you are. You'll say bind off or cast off. It's no matter, it's the same thing. We're going to put our yarn to the back because this next stitch is a knit stitch. So I'm going to work that as a knit stitch, and now I'm going to lift that back and over the tip of that needle, and that is bound off. See, it's making this flat edge here. This is also a knit stitch, so I'm going to work a knit stitch and lift that back loop over the front loop and over the tip of that needle, and we work that again. So now here again is another knit stitch, and we're just going to keep going, binding these off as we go. Okay, and now to a purl bump. Put that yarn forward, work it as a purl stitch, lift up and over, and work that. The next one is purl, and we know we do these in sequences of 3, so you can continue that patterning in your head, that little mantra that helps you remember. I remember like a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's like a little dance with a yarn. Okay, and then we work that to the back, knitting that up, binding it off. Okay, one more knit. Binding that stitch off. And up and over, and you can see how this is following along this pattern here, and it has a nice edge to it. It just continues in that look there. And with this last stitch, we're just going to pull it out, use our scissors here, clip it, and then we have something to work with to use our wide-eyed tapestry needle on and weave in the ends. So I'm just going to take this tapestry needle of mine and thread it through. Obviously you want to get one that's big enough, the eye is wide enough for your super bulky yarn here. And then we're just going to work it into the stitches here. I like to go back through, and then we're going to go along with the stitches that are there. Go up and over, imitating that stitch. You can follow along with the stitches. See, what I'm doing is I'm matching what the stitches are actually doing. And then I go back up here. And I'm following the stitch over. And see how it's just completely masking itself because I'm following that stitch pattern. And then I can follow it up. This one. And then go back down. I'm just following these stitches around in the way that they move in my fabric. So if you'll do that with yours, and wherever you had a tail, it masks it completely and no one is ever going to know where that tail is, and it locks it in really, really well. And then once you've got it in, you got about 3 or 4 inches in of your tail here, it's not going to go anywhere, and then you can snip that off. And whenever you cut it, you want to cut it not right up close to it, but you'll want to hold it back just a little bit because it'll work in just a little bit. Just weave in all tails and you're done. I hope you've enjoyed this chunky version of the steep diagonal pattern for the men's scarf. I've enjoyed it as well. For more information on getting yarn and pattern, click on the link below. Be sure and subscribe for more yarny goodness from Yarnspirations and GoodKnit Kisses. On behalf of Yarnspirations and GoodKnit Kisses, I'm your knitting host, Kristen Mangus. Have a great day and happy knitting. Bye-bye.